Imagine thinking you're not destined for greatness, but you think you're just meant to be a shield and to master the blade. Imagine finding out that you're basically a being that has limitless potential and has a mythical beast inside of him. Imagine finding out your body has limitless potential more than the rest that allows you to absorb power from other mystical beasts to increase your power. Imagine finding out that you get so strong to the point where you can take on the creator of magic itself, a being that can create his own dimension, an interdimensional rift that's explained in the lore, a being that can create a place that has its very own sun in it, and he created this realm or dimension. And what if I told you this creator of magic had a whole bunch of brethren that look just like him that can do similar stuff when it comes to powers and divine power and energy, and they literally fuse together? Clive had to fight and punch this same being and overpower this same being that fused with other beings similar to himself. Like, he's fusing with multiple beings that can create, each of them can create their own sun or dimension with a star in it. He's fusing with multiple beings like this. Then what if I was to tell you Clive actually got a piece of this divine being's essence in him to where he can do anything he can do when it comes to energy projection and blast and powers and abilities and magic? You think this is just a piece of his power? Clive not only overpowered this same being that's fused with multiple similar entities as himself, his brethren, and all that can create dimensions, he overpowered the same being. And not only that, apparently absorbed this same whole being's essence that's fused with multiple beings like himself. And Clive overpowered this being and absorbed, stacked that power on top of his own power. Like, bro, what? Implying that Clive can do anything that guy can do but better, meaning having the energy or power energy projects of divine power to create multiple stars if Clive wanted to. Imagine his blast power. We got a lot to dissect when it comes to Clive today. Hope you all enjoy. Clive from Final Fantasy 16. He's an outlier of this verse because when it comes to, in this universe, there's like a whole bunch of godlike mythical titan type beasts known as Eikons. Different humans have these beasts in them depending on who you are, and they specialize in different elements: fire, ice, rock, blah, 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 darkness, healing, shooting beams of light, wind. These titan beings have different modes: their base form, their second stage of their transformation, then a full-blown kaiju-like Godzilla-type mode to where their true power gets unleashed and their full destructive raw power or destructive capacity is unleashed. And it's the thing about Clive, he's kind of like a walking anomaly, like I've already said. He's got a lot of power under his command. It took him a while to even get used to his own power, and he's made improvements as time goes by, but he got like little pieces of all these different entities that I've shown you already within him. Like, I don't want to go over this too long, but you guys probably already know this stuff. Like, he can get pieces of everybody's icon, absorb the power into himself so he can get new versatile abilities. This is a common theme throughout this series, Final Fantasy 16. This even goes for beasts like Leviathan, water type, kaiju type beasts, because every being he ended up fighting, he ended up getting their strength too. Because he's one of the few characters in this universe, not all characters are like this, but he has a limitless potential when it comes to raw power. Because they say he has the ability in the lore to absorb the powers of other mythical beasts. This is like reiterated over and over again. That's part of the reason why the main villain Ultima wants him, because of his uniqueness and limitless potential to be a vessel to be able to cast an extremely powerful spell that none other could. Like, I'm not exaggerating. The different icons, he literally, cutscene-wise, absorb the different beings or beast power from different beings in his game. That's why he can use wind abilities. He got the beast of Ramu, which is why he can use lightning ability. Titan, that's why he can use the rocky type of abilities. That's why he can blast with rock and earth. So think of him like this. He has his base form, which is absurdly strong. He still can do a lot of stuff like this, but then he can amp himself up. He can transform into, like, one could say basically his Super Saiyan type of transformation to where everything about him gets amped up more than normal, which basically allows him to hit harder. Like, he made power progress, but with all this power throughout the game, he struggled to control it. So there would be times where he would struggle against stuff he shouldn't. That's basically their explanation on why he even struggled in this game, because he just didn't know what he was doing, but he had the power within him though. That's why moments he couldn't beat certain beings like Odin, for example. Even when he powered up, he got KO'd by Odin here and even here. But then he eventually got strong enough to where he could beat him. With all that being said, yeah, him at his peak, he understands how to use all his powers now. So he's really versatile. He can shoot a lot of different energy projective type of attacks, fire. And this being known as Leviathan, he has the power to control water too and shoot water blasts. Like, isn't this a scary sight? Him powered up in his Ifrit semi-prime self, but then having some of the power of Leviathan shooting out part of his arm being Leviathan looking, the mythical beast. Just like how he has the power of Shiva within him. There's potential about him that we never really got to explore in this universe. The reason why I'm saying this is because there's beings that he has the power of course, like, how he has the power of Shiva. Based on the new DLC, we kind of learned some new stuff about what Shiva could do with enough training. Not just freezing stuff with just normal ice, but actually freezing time itself. Like, she can literally freeze stuff, objects, but the concept of time itself, Shiva can technically freeze. One could argue Clive could technically do something like this too. if he, learned how to use this ability with Shiva, because he has it. If you know about this game, you know he had the power of Shiva. So in theory, we never seen Clive do this, but one could say possibly he would be able to technically freeze time too, because they state who else would have the power to freeze time other than Shiva herself. It's explained here about a dominant of Shiva in the past had mastery over the element of ice extended even to freezing of time. It was like a secret spell. So one could say in theory, Clive could technically learn this. If he so had to, like they confirm it, she can freeze time. She entrusted her Eikon to Clive. You get the idea? Going back to how the progress he's made is, let's go back to how much progress he's made real quick. There was points in the story where he would get stuff that one could say were temporary powers, but these temporary powers ended up becoming permanent. Like, let me explain real quick. Say Joshua got the Phoenix, Clive got, Ifrit. Like, there would be moments where they literally would fuse together. Like, this was technically, in this section, was a temporary power, but this ended up being like a permanent power at the end of the game. He ended up just permanently getting his brother Joshua's power permanently because, unfortunately, Joshua passed. So, he ended up getting this, as a permanent theme. So, I think this just applies for Clive in general. I mean, he already had a piece of the Phoenix, but he has, the full power here. Power that far exceeds either Eikon alone. So yeah, the fact that he got a permanent power up like this is Clive's new permanent power. It's kind of let you know how scary Clive is. So Clive basically has pieces of all the beasts in him, like little bits and pieces of every single beast, right? Also has the full power of the Phoenix, but Ultima, the strongest being in this whole universe, was actually foolish enough to give Clive a piece of his essence. So now he has the power of the god of the verse. He has a piece of the power of the god of the verse within him. Like every character in this game's universe, literally Clive has a piece of their power in him, guys. Even the main final boss he has the power of. It was a gift. Are you serious? And that is actually insane that he has a piece of Ultima's essence, this divine being's power. But you're probably thinking, oh, he only has a piece of his power. Right? That's what you're thinking. You think he only has a piece of his power. Well, yeah, I'm definitely getting back to this, but spoiler warning, he seems like he absorbed the entirety of Ultima's power. So yeah, it's almost like anything Ultima can do at full power, Clive can also do too. It just gets crazy. I'm so glad Clive didn't have no opponents after this, because I'm like, who else would have faced him after he absorbed the power of Ultima into his entirety? This is actually kind of crazy. So yeah, he has pieces of all these beings in him, including Leviathan and the divine god entity Ultima himself. Literally being able to fire a new type of energy blast, not just fire ice, rock, water, but he can fire actual divine energy. But let's get into it. As you already know, he can turn into an Ifrit, a giant kaiju type being, and he can regenerate his whole arm. He can do omnidirectional wave blast, fire blast attacks to shield himself when he's in his Ifrit form. And he can make blades out of flame while in this kaiju state to cut stuff. With all this power, it's easy to forget certain things yeah, he does actually have sword fighting skills. You probably forget that kind of stuff when you're this powerful and you use these different type of elements like Leviathan and such. But yeah, he can actually use a blade and is shown pretty consistently to be able to know how to use a blade on top of his super strength attributes and things like that. Thanks to one of the mystical beasts he have inside of him, Clive can use his raw strength just like how Titan can do this. Clive should be able to do this too, lift up the whole floor. Don't see no reason why Clive can't do this too. He can lift hundreds or even thousands of tons, because when he's in his big kaiju Ifrit state, he was able to stop this huge rock that had to weigh hundreds or even thousands of tons he tossed to the side. Even when he's not powered up all the way, he can do similar stuff when it comes to holding heavy rocks or stopping them from falling a descent. Like this big old rock, for example, with his strength, look at the size of it. Even giant Titan beings that are bigger than himself, just because they're bigger than him doesn't mean he can't sling them. Titan's already big, like the Eikon, the mythical beast is already huge like this, right? But tell me why he got bigger to where he literally became like an actual mountain-looking entity. This was like a battle suit for his own big giant's body, like a Rocky battle suit, one could say. This has to be over hundreds or even hundreds of thousands of tons of force. You literally see Clive stop his attacks with his muscles as Ifrit state and sling a big arm at him like this. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science, base form or not. He can lift hundreds or even thousands of tons. That's not really a shocker considering the beings he's fighting. I mean, with all this raw strength, he can punch hard. One could say striking power or just cutting power. He can just hit hard. Whether we're talking about his sword or just him enhancing his punches with flame attacks or something, like either or punches or kicks. Or sword strike. Beings that he literally has the essence of, like I already showed proof of that, like Garuda, like I already showed how he took her power. She can do stuff like this to buildings, can pretty much level buildings, lift them up, destroy them with their hits. Clive literally can make his hands have these same tendrils that you do similar. So yeah, he can definitely do that. Level temples or castles. I mean, he has a part of the essence of Titan in him, a being we've seen on screen, not even in his full powered state, can shake entire castles, even when his hands are gone because of Clive cut him off. Like, these are the type of beings he has the essence power of. Clive should be able to do this similar stuff too, shaking his whole temple, because he can literally give himself Titan avatar-like hands similar to that guy. You know, of course, he can use the powers of Odin, who can quite literally slice buildings in half with ease like this. Clive can do this too. Because Clive in his beastly state was able to take a hit like that can level mountains. Like, I'm talking about a hit that can make a gigantic crater. This Titan being can do this with foot stomps, making huge destructive waves of force. Not only does Clive have his similar pieces of his essence, but we've seen Clive actually clash with a being like this in his semi-prime state before he even got Titan's power. And even cut off his hands to show Clive's raw power. Even confirmed he wasn't strong enough for Clive. Even when he became this big, like a mountain, literal mountain man, like battleship thing I already talked about earlier, Clive can hit things this big, mountain-sized structures, and damage them with his hits. Yeah, damaging them. Like this, and drop kick through the ship itself. Or the suit, one could say. Similar to how, you know, he can use the power of Titan. Similar to how Titan can level mountains. Don't see no reason on why Clive couldn't. Like, it's one thing hitting hard, but yeah, you don't forget that Ifrit, you know, Clive has blast power. On top of this crazy strength, he can do flame-style concussive blasts that produce this much power to pretty much shatter a mountain-sized structure. So yeah, he can definitely tremble and destroy mountains. Delete them, blah, blah, blah. Look at these craters. Keep in mind that Titan literally stated a battle between two top tiers like themselves would shake the island. So yeah, Clive definitely easily has mountain shaking or easily mountain destruction type power. If he can clash with beings that can shake islands, you know, Clive should be able to shake islands too, or an island. Remember what happened when he fought the Phoenix? The collateral of their fight made that huge crater and just leveled a whole castle, multiple castles, even producing all of this energy in a wide radius. So yeah, they can definitely level multiple castles. Like, look at all this destruction. Yeah, that crater too. Yeah, all that was Clive's doing. Every Titan type being you can think of, Clive has clashed with. And not only clashed with them and end up taking a bit of their power. Like, you see him blocking a blast from Bahamut here, making a wall of flame. Like, you see him block it literally. Not to mention, he can actually use the powers of Bahamut and produce his own blast of light. So yeah, he can do what he can do when it comes to blast power. And we've seen Bahamut blast through mountain-sized crystals and make a hole, their own hole through this mountain-sized structure, making an entrance. I mean, when we're talking about beings like Leviathan, he also had to fight, which you're going to see in this vid, of course, but he's also had to fight. But look at all this stuff Leviathan was about to do if he didn't get frozen. Leviathan was literally going to summon a wave so large it would have swallowed the entire village. That doesn't seem like an exaggeration when you see all of this. It definitely seems like he was definitely about to do that. He would have destroyed everything, they say. We've seen what Leviathan did here, destroyed the temple with its blast power, something that's a common theme. All this water Leviathan can command, like massive amounts of water. And when it comes to blast power, how much he can hit, you know, Clive, even though he's smaller and even though he's at a disadvantage with all this water, and you know, he's fire versus water basically, there was plenty of instances where Leviathan blasted Clive, and his blast power or shielding or fire shielding or whatever was able to stand up to his blast. And when they talk about Leviathan's power, like, look at all of this water. This would have definitely leveled the village. Like, even Clive mentioned it in the captions. Yo, the village is in jeopardy. And when it comes to the raw destructive power, we've seen Clive, like, do damage to Leviathan to the point he had him reeling. Then Clive charges up another blast attack on Leviathan. Literally slapped Leviathan in the face with this big old Frieza death beam, death ball type of attack. Flame blast. What they call it, hellfire, of course. This pretty much shows that Ifrit's able to stand up to his power, Leviathan's power. Ifrit said, you want to focus on that one? I'm going to smack you in the face with another one to make it land on him. It was even stated here in Leviathan stuff, Icon of Water, that he can swallow entire cities. This is the type of stuff Clive had to compete against. Clive had to compete with this. He should be able to counter stuff that can level multiple cities. Not to mention, Clive technically has a piece of this essence too, so he should technically be able to level a city with Leviathan's water manipulation powers if he really wanted to be destructive too, if he wanted to, with his water manipulation or blast power, blah, blah, blah. Similar to how Odin can split the sea because of this sword, Clive can use this sword too, and it's literally stated that Odin, and he has the power of Odin himself, they can split the seas. Somebody that sword slashes can do this, like to the ocean, like literally split the ocean. They're not exaggerating. Like, you can literally see how deep it went. When they said split the sea, they meant split the sea. And guess what? Clive, without necessarily using the power of Odin or the sea, even though he can split the sea in two, Odin in his most powered up state, when he used this same sword attack on Ifrit, Clive didn't even have a sword in his hand at the time, guys. And he did a slice. Like, you see this sword that split the sea? Clive literally catches the sword with his bare hands as a, Eikon, of course, as Ifrit, and rips it apart and made his own sword to cut him with. Yeah, so yeah, Ifrit with his bare hands could split the sea, if we're being honest. Punches that split the sea, and they can sever the threads of creation and shake the skies. There was this continent-wide cloud that was covering up the whole continent of Valistia. Clyde had his blast power and energy projection, can blast and spread all these clouds. All these clouds. You see it covering up pretty much the whole land. He can spread all this junk out to make the skies clear again. This is like a joke, really, mountain-shattering stuff, because when you look at their full potential in their lore, it's actually stated that Titan has the raw power to shake the Earth itself. You guys know about the size difference between Earth and the Moon, right? This basically means if you can shake something like the Earth, you can easily shake or even cause massive destruction to a moon-sized structure. This pretty much implies with his attack, strikes, or blasts, Ifrit can battle beings that can shake the very Earth itself. So all that mountain and island shattering stuff, that's just like tip of the iceberg stuff, really. That's nothing compared to what these Titans really can do. Clive is the same being that can punch these Titans and damage these beings without even transforming fully, guys. Like right here, for example, he wasn't fully in control of knowing how to use his power. He still can kind of harm these beings even when they're fully beasted out. So one could say, even without necessarily revolving around this Titan mode, Clive should technically have the raw power to shake the whole world too. Because when they attack him, you see him blocking and, look at the size difference. Parry them, cut pieces of their limbs off, damage them with just straight sword attacks. So technically, without even counting his beast within or even channeling that stuff, he can be in his base form and do crazy superhuman stuff, like shaking the Earth itself. Because a lot of these beasts compete with each other. But it gets worse. Not only are there statements like this about them being able to shake the Earth, but there's statements about Odin, who Clive has the powers of, that state that he could cleave the very threads of creation. Like, how do you measure that? Not to mention there's statements of Eikons battling and their duels can shake the sky. Like, how the heck do you shake the sky? But yeah, Clive should technically be able to do this too if these other ones can do it. Matter of fact, there's things they fought without even having to go beast mode. Like, there's beings that Clive has fought that he didn't even have to go into his Ifrit mode. Like this thing known as Omega. This thing right here was stated to have world-shattering power. So this implies that they're not only planet or Earth shakers, but planet shatterers, because this thing is a planet shatterer, apparently. It was a team effort, of course, but yeah, he didn't actually have to transform into his Ifrit mode. This is like the base form. They took on something that apparently had world-shattering power, implying that Clive has enough raw striking power or blast power in his base state without necessarily needing to super transform or semi-prime or nothing. Battle things that apparently can cause world-destroying type of power, and he can counter and beat them. This entity that they fought was also stated with his energy manipulation abilities and just being able to distort reality type of stuff. It literally stated that it was doing some commencing dimensional compression type stuff. Like dimensional compression, they stated he was compressing the dimension they was in, appearing like he was making his own black hole type of thing. Like, look how they talk about it. Why can't you breathe? Because it's constricting all of creation. Like, what? The move is literally called dimensional compression, guys. Just to further reiterate, dominance can transform into beasts that have world-shattering strength. I mean, there was this occasion with Bahamut. This was a temporary power, but he got this power permanently now. So he could technically do something like this similarly. When he was about to blast with something that was apparently going to burn the world, Bahamut was about to blast with something that destructive, apparently, in this situation with the Zeta Flare. Ifrit, Clive, Ifrit Risen, was able to counter such a blast, pushing it back, the beam that was apparently going to burn the world, apparently, or destroy it, one could say. He had to counter such a blast. So it's more evidence that Clive had to stop something that was going to threaten the planet itself or the destruction of the planet. Ifrit Reason had to stop something that was going to apparently burn the world, apparently. Clive stopped an attack like that. And you guys already know a little bit earlier, I brought up him fighting Leviathan, a being that can control a lot of water, like this godlike kaiju being he had to compete against. Leviathan and Ifrit would literally have beam struggle type blasts. Like you see the beam struggle here. Their beams are clashing with one another, or their energy is clashing with each other. This being Leviathan is also stated he has power that can swallow the world. And Ifrit, Clive has to beam struggle or block attacks, counterattacks from the same being. Even in this giant kaiju state, there's heavy implications Clive still has fighting speed. Like in this occasion with Titan, you can see how his blows are ridiculously fast, and they just keep on speeding up. Not to mention one could say he could go light speed or fight at light speed, because when he became fused with Joshua's stuff, which is technically a permanent power up at the end of the game, he can literally maneuver ridiculously fast, attack at this kind of speed, like literally zipping around. Light speed, they called it. You got a little occasion of his combat speed here. You can see how his fist literally can move like a blur ridiculously fast. So yeah, he can hit ridiculously hard like this, and he has fighting speed on the light speed plus ranges. I mentioned this early in the video, but I'm back to it. You know, this being known as Ultima, he's responsible for us humans in this world even having magic in the first place at their disposal. Even he's the reason why they can even cast magic. Tell me why Clive, like I mentioned earlier, technically got a piece of his power, so he can do divine type stuff like Ultima can do. Not to mention, after the game, it seems like he actually absorbed the rest of Ultima's being, it seems. So it's almost like whatever Ultima can do, Clive can do better, because he has all these other icons plus Ultima's power, the being that made magic in the first place. He already had a piece of his power. Now it implied he got all of his power at the very end of the game. You're probably wondering, why is this important, considering, well, this is very important considering this says a lot about Clive when it comes to being an energy manipulator or projector. I mean, Ultima is the same being. He has his own dimension. Like this right here is their own dimension they're in. And apparently, if Clive can do anything this guy can do but better, wouldn't Clive technically be able to make his own dimension too? Like, it's literally confirmed in the lore of the game, this interdimensional rift, a place beyond space and time. It's a rift between worlds by its creator, Ultima. They even said by its creator, Ultima. Clive has all the power of Ultima. Like, it seems like Ultima has full dominion to the point where we can literally see him like warp the entire dimension at command. Like, that's the type of energy projective type abilities he got. Like, you see it happen on screen. Clive should technically be able to do this, bending the darkness. He literally got his power. Clive should also be able to bend the dimension to his will. A dimension that apparently has its own sun. You probably think this is just Earth. No, they're not on Earth. They're in Ultima's dimension. And it appears to have an actual sun. Like, you see it. It seems to be an actual sun. Then Clive, after he absorbs his essence or full power of Ultima, it seems like the dimension itself got erased too, meaning that the dimension was being sustained by Ultima. The dimension can't exist without Ultima, a dimension with a star. Because you see right here, they end up going back to the main dimension where, you know, where Joshua is, as you can see right here. So one can say Clive could technically, especially now that he has Ultima's divine power, one could say Clive could be an energy manipulator capable of creating his very own star, guys. This would drastically change this planet-shattering stuff. If you can create a whole star, if you can produce that kind of energy to create an actual star, creating a star takes way more raw energy than the power needed to destroy a planet like Earth. Like, having the energy to create a sun, that would mean he's way, way past Earth-shattering levels of raw energy he can produce or just create. We're talking about Clive being a star-trembling, star-shattering type being. If you can produce the energy needed to create a star, you would have to produce way more energy needed to destroy planets when you can create that kind of energy out of the blue. So yeah, moon destruction should be cake to him. Same with Earth destruction. Planets way bigger than Earth, like Jupiter, he should have no problem shaking, trembling, or destroying massive planetoids like this. It's one of those situations to where even if you don't want to assume the sun he created was as big as our sun, even smaller stars are bigger than some of the largest planets. Just to give y'all an idea of just creating any star would be ridiculously impressive. Whether it's a small one or a star our sun size, it still would be way bigger than a planet-sized, Earth-sized planet. Just for those that are obsessed with visuals, you see him overpowering Ultima's different icons here with his own icons. It doesn't matter which icon that Ultima pulls out, Clive can match it with his own icon. In like a beam struggle type of thing where their staffs collide. Clive pushes his back. Even when Ultima pulls out his version of Titan, Clive pulls out his version of Titan. You get the pattern? He's overpowering his blows with his own blows. Even blast power beam struggles, the writers did this on purpose to show that Clive is just superior to him in every way. Everything that Ultima did, Clive matched it and overpowered it with his own blast. There's literally no way you can say Ultima's above him. Every power, even Odin's sword, Clive can make his own Odin's sword, clash with his version of the Odin sword, and Clive can do better. Messing up his sword, even his own version of the Phoenix, because you had your doubts about him having the Phoenix, blasting Ultima. And this is like the ultimate proof. Throws his, clashing with his, and literally goes through Ultima. This is more impressive than you might think, because this Ultima had brethren. Like, yeah, it was him, and then it was a whole bunch of other beings similar to him. Yeah, don't ask. His brothers was like in a deep sleep. The whole point of this game was for him to wake his brothers up so they can become one. Like, I'm not playing. If each Ultima was as strong as one Ultima, that can apparently create a dimension with an actual star in it. That just changes the game on Clive's power, considering he overpowered a fused version of a Ultima that's fused with all his brethren that have similar power to him. Like, one of the brethren was even in Joshua, but now he's free. As you can see, and this brethren, and just like the other Ultima, become one. And I'm not playing, they literally did it. Like, they literally fused together. So the Ultima that Clive fought is like astronomically stronger than the Ultima we're used to seeing throughout this game. By, one could argue, multiples of 10 or twice or 10 times stronger, because he fused with like all his brethren. This is the version that Clive fought. So Clive doing this is even more impressive than you probably originally thought. I'm just saying. And also doing this is more impressive than you originally probably thought. With his punches or blasting and overpower this same being. This changes everything considering how small one sun is compared to the Earth. Not only did Clive overpower such a being, and he pretty much got this whole being's essence in him at the end of the game anyway. So anything Ultima can do, he can do better. It's implied Clive can make multiple dimensions or suns, multiple stars, create them with his energy or blast with that similar force outward. It's just too much evidence of Clive's crazy power. He's millions and billions and quintillions of times bigger than planet-shattering levels. With all this power that Clive got or absorbed, overpowered a being that's fused with other beings that can create interdimensional rifts that can possibly have a sun in it too. Wouldn't be surprised if he can destroy multiple suns, destroy a whole solar system, destroy more than one solar system. It's just so much evidence of Clive's might at this point, with Ultima's abilities in his arsenal as well. Do you think Clive is one of the strongest Final Fantasy characters of all time? But before I get going, everybody, I gotta say thanks for the donations, everybody. It helps out a lot. Respect, Clive. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.